Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Um, so thank you very much to Pillar Center for inviting me to this International Scientific Forum to reflect on domestic violence. And I believe that today, I think we are addressing a very crucial menace to our society. And I think domestic violence has undeniably become, a social and public health problem. And I'm honored to be part of this forum and contributing to the cause which impacts the growth of our societies in general and women in particular. Now, I think that the perception of domestic violence may differ from country to country, but in countries like Pakistan, it is one of the most underreported crimes. And one of the reasons why that's the case is because it is considered as an entitlement or some sort of a family conflict that went out of control by both the abuser and the victim. So, and this is the reason why they do not consider reporting it in the first place. Now, as we know, globally, the victims of domestic violence are overwhelmingly women. And Pakistan is also not an exception in that case. So in 2020, Pakistan ranked 151 out of 153 countries on the Global Gender Gap Index report, which was published by the World Economic Forum. Also, according to a 2019 report of the National Institute of Population Studies, 24.5% of Pakistani girls and women who were aged 15 to approximately 49, they experienced intimate partner physical and sexual violence at least once in their lifetime. Also, an estimated 5,000 women are killed per year from domestic violence, where women have reported attacks from ranging, from physical to psychological. Now, in terms of physical violence, the most common forms of violence have been abduction, rape, forced conversion of religion, forced marriages of women or a girl child, especially from the minority communities. So, and not only this, but also dowry deaths. So, burning of a bride is one of the most, manifested forms of domestic violence in Pakistan. Then there have been documentaries made on the nuisance of acid attacks and also honor killings. And all these are attributed to the high statistics of domestic violence in our country. Psychological abuse, in terms of psychological abuse, generally includes yelling, insulting, controlling behaviors, threatening behaviors. But I think COVID-19 pandemic, as Susan also very rightly mentioned, has aggravated this scenario, contributing the overall mental health and problem among the women. So in Pakistan, 53% of women reported that the pandemic had a significant negative impact on their mental health, compared to 37% of men. Not only this, but simply giving preference to a son over daughter in everything and considering a daughter as a burden is a huge manifestation of this particular menace, which is not yet realized also in the households of our country. And what could be the factors involved if we look at that factor side? So as most of the speakers also mentioned, that poverty resulting in illiteracy and also lack of awareness about women's rights, as well as the mental health problem. And then another problem that exists in our country is the factor of patriarchal society norms, which basically marginalizes women's role. The sad reality is that majority of the victims of violence in Pakistan have no legal recourse. So even if the victims are aware of their rights and if they do have the courage to report, our law enforcement authorities and agencies, they do not view domestic violence as a crime, and they usually refuse to register such cases. Now, the point that I want to really amplify here on this platform is that the root cause of domestic violence, as we know, is to gain and establish power and influence on the victim. And unfortunately, woman has been considered as a gender to be ruled over and controlled over. When in fact, the women who actually should possess that power which can help nurture and sustain our upcoming generations. So that can, they can evolve into a successful nation. But of course, if this is only possible if she feels that entitlement or given that entitlement. So I think that our very perception of power and control is distorted, which is based on money, violence, coercion, and threats, when it should have been a well-nourished, developed, and educated youth who is the light bearer and future of our nations. So if a woman is given enough freedom and education to not only protect their own rights, but also of their children, she can actually change the course of the nations in power. But unfortunately, domestic violence prevents this phenomena by not only sabotaging women's rights, but also the psychology of our children, with an increasing rate of depression among them every year. In this light, we can very easily see that domestic violence is impacting many stakeholders of our society and not just women. So there is a dire need of an overhaul of, not only our ideologies, our mindsets, but also our laws and regulations, which encourage this notion of domestic violence. And the irony is that Pakistan's legal system has done very little to uphold the attempted reforms in the legislations. Firstly, the status of domestic violence protection bill is stalled for a decade now due to opposition from the religious parties, describing it as anti-Islamic bill. And then secondly, also the government has been ineffective in the case of killings over uneducated dowries, for example, as well as to repress the acid attacks in the country. According to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, a key strategy in preventing domestic violence is basically the promotion of strategies like community level and individual level and societal level change. And I think in Pakistan also, there are a variety of NGOs who are active in providing the support to women who are enduring domestic violence. For example, Bedari, White Ribbon Campaign Pakistan, Asset Survivors Foundation Pakistan. So I believe that awareness and education among women for their basic rights can bring about the desired change. Just to conclude, I would like to highlight the importance of education among women, not only for their rights, but also for their own activism on their individual part, as well as on the part of these NGOs and the role of community, which can aggressively create the much desired noise so that the government and the legislation can act effectively to reduce this menace from our society. So thank you so much. That was all from my side.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ambreen.
Thank you, Ambreen. Wait a minute, please. And thank you so much, Ambreen, for your speech. There is no doubt that women and children are among the most vulnerable to violence, attacks on their humanity, and rights. And the percentages depicted the international organization in this regard to are terrible, Thank you so much. Unfortunately for saying that, but this is the truth. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. إذا بتسمحوا لي بالترجمة دكتورة بعد إذنكم.
تفضلي.
تمام. عندنا المتحدثة الثالثة هي أمبرين كوكب شاه من باكستان، بكالوريوس هندسة حاسوب واتصالات، ماجستير إدارة زمالة أطلس كور، سفيرة دولية لدى شبكة ويمنتك، واستشارية شبكات واتصالات لدى شركة إريكسون. كتلخيص للي حكته بتحكي إنه العنف الأسري مشكلة اجتماعية وعامة ودولية مهمة جدا، وتحدثت عن العنف الأسري من كمثال من بلدها باكستان، وأنه يختلف مفهومه من بلد لآخر طبعا، ولكن في باكستان مثلا يعد العنف الأسري من أكثر الجرائم التي لا يتم الإبلاغ عنها، وأن السبب في ذلك أنه يعتبر باعتباره استحقاقا أو نوع من الصراع الأسري الخارج عن السيطرة. أيضا تحدثت عن أن غالبية ضحايا العنف هم من النساء، وتحدثت عن إحصائيات في عام 2020 حيث احتلت باكستان مرتبة 151 من أصل 153 دولة في تقرير مؤشر الفجوة بين الجنسين العالمي الذي نشره المنتدى الاقتصادي العالمي. وأيضا أيضا وفقا لتقرير عام 2019 الصادر عن المعهد الوطني للدراسات السكانية، فإن 24.5% من الفتيات والنساء الباكستانيات اللائي تتراوح أعمارهن من بين 15 و 49 عام يتعرضن للعنف الجسدي والجنسي من قبل الشريك مرة واحدة على الأقل في حياتهن. أيضا تحدثت عن أنواع العنف الذي تتعرض له النساء في باكستان، منه العنف الجسدي والنفسي، والذي يشمل الخطف والاغتصاب والتحول القسري للدين والزواج القسري للمرأة أو الطفلة، كما أيضا يشمل الإيذاء النفسي مثل الصراخ والسب والتحكم في السلوكيات والتهديد. وتحدثت عن أسبابه العديدة والتي سيطرت وحيث يعتبر أن الكوفيد 19 أو الكورونا من الأسباب الرئيسية التي سيطرت على الساحة في هذه الأيام. أيضا قالت بأن غالبية ضحايا العنف في باكستان ليس لديهم لا تنظر لهم السلطات القانونية، لأن العنف الأسري في باكستان لا يعتبر جريمة، وعادة ما ترفض السلطات تسجيل أي قضايا يتم رفعها إليها من هذا القبيل. كما تحدثت على أن العنف الأسري ليس أيضا ظاهرة يتم من خلالها انتهاك حقوق المرأة، ولكن أيضا يتم أيضا يعمل على زيادة معدل الاكتئاب لدى الأطفال كل عام، وأننا بحاجة ليس فقط إلى إصلاح أيديولوجياتنا وعقلياتنا، ولكن أيضا إلى قوانيننا وأنظمتنا التي تشجع على فكرة العنف الأسري. كما أيضا تحدث عن دور المنظمات الغير الحكومية الناشطة في تقديم الدعم للنساء اللواتي يتعرضن للعنف المنزلي في باكستان، وذكرت أسماء عدة منظمات. وفي الختام أسلطت الضوء على أهمية تعليم النساء بحقوقهن ونشاط المنظمات، وعلى أهمية نشاط المنظمات الغير حكومية ودورهم في المجتمع